Jesse is just talking about how he's gotten triggered so easily. He doesn't understand why he's triggered so easily.
He doesn't understand it, ladies and gentlemen. Stop it.
And
this douchebag's name is Scott.
Oh, Scott.
Fuck you, Scott. He comes over to the house. He sucks bad.
Listener discretion advised. Adult language and mature content.
Welcome back, everybody. Two Queens, One Screen. I'm Jen.
I'm Keeley.
And we are rearing to go. I'm very excited about this week because it has been a doozy.
Episode 666.
No joke. So episode 6 of The Valley, which I have not had feelings this strongly about The Valley so far. And it's not about any of the people that I thought I would care about. And I'm feeling very intense about it.
Yeah.
And then we're also going to talk about a very cool true crime that Keeley turned me on to and we watched this week. So we'll cover both of those. But for The Valley, the thing about The Valley is that it's not just this episode. It's also the after show. It's also the Watch What Happens Live and whatever we happen to see about it on the internet. One of the things that popped up that Andy Cohen put Janet and Jason on the hot seat about was who in the cast they would want to sleep with and who in the cast they would want to marry.
Mm-hmm.
I asked Matt, and Matt was like, none. He's not into any of them. He's like, none of them are any good. He's like, do you have an answer? And I was like, oh, I feel like the women have a better set of choices than the men.
Oh yeah.
So I don't even know. Okay, so who would I sleep with on The Valley?
Crickets.
Probably Jason, because he seems wildly deferential and very willing to please. And then I would marry probably Jason, because apparently it's very, very hard to get any sort of pushback from him if he's married to you. Like, you can do whatever.
Clearly.
I would have so many more cats if I was married to Jason.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. He's just not going to do anything.
But I'm also mad at him. But we can go.
Oh, always and forever mad at him.
Jason, all right, how about you?
My answer would both be Nia and Danny. I would probably sleep with or marry both of them. Sleep with Nia. I would sleep with Danny. I could marry Nia and I could marry Danny.
I could not marry Danny. I find him, I think I could handle him for a couple hours of the hangout. And then after that, I couldn't be in a house with him long term.
Oh, no.
Because we'll get into it. I don't think Dark Side Danny? I don't think Dark Side Danny exists day-to-day life.
Yeah.
But I think I'd find him very irritating. Because he's a former Disney Channel star, right? Or Nickelodeon teen drama star.
Sure.
It's a little too much high school theater.
Okay.
Kid vibes to me. But
all right.
But I like him, and I am a Danny apologist.
Mm-hmm.
We actually come into episode 6 of The Valley. The first thing that happens is we are at the tail end of the fight between everyone and Nia.
Yeah.
And Nia stands her ground. This whole episode is just going to be me talking about what a fucking queen she is. Because she's very direct and she's like, what's going on? What are you upset about? So you're upset that I'm not being open and honest. I'm not saying he wasn't drunk. He's drunk, but he's also very tired. Two things can be true at a time. And then you have Brittany and Jasmine, who are both also drunk. They've been drinking all day. They've all been drinking all day. And they're saying, well, Brittany's putting it all out there. It's bullshit. Brittany's putting everything out there. And then you're trying to act like it's this great, everything's fine. Everything's perfect. You won't acknowledge what's really happening here. And then poor Danny wakes up and walks into the room and he's like, what's going on? And Nia's like, it's not good energy in here. I will explain it to you in the kitchen, but you need to walk into the kitchen. You need to walk away. And he's like, what is this about? And she's like, it's about you. And he's like, it's about me. I've been napping.
Yeah.
Oh, he really walked into it. Nia walks Danny back into their room. They sit down. she's just like so self-aware. You can tell she's in the middle of therapy, having so much therapy, right?
Yeah.
She's like, I'm going to explain it to you. And then he kind of leans over and starts like rubbing her. She's like, I don't want to be comforted right now.
Yeah.
My body has so much adrenaline going through it. I am going to explain it to you, but I need a second to breathe it out. Like, it was how I wish I could handle things better. I'm going to try and do that better. Like the way that she handled it. Because she had just been attacked by all of these people, screamed at by these people she thought she was close to, getting told that her husband is an alcoholic and gross and that she's a liar and fake. And she held her head up high. She had the whole conversation. She's explaining it to Danny. And Danny's like, what the fuck? And she's like, don't laugh. This is not. And he's like, I don't even know how to react. And she's like, I need you to take this very seriously.
Yeah.
And then she's like, you can hug me now. And I thought it was so very emotionally intelligent and tuned into her body and her emotions and also looking at what was going on with everyone. I thought it was awesome.
And can I just say, in the interim of all of that, from the time that the show started and the time that you just ended, Janet twice stirred the pot and said the Danny pantry story twice. Why? Why, Janet? Why do we need to say your stupid pantry story about Danny twice? There's no need. Shut up. Who cares? I mean, she bugs me so bad.
This is such a clear... I mean, Brittany is drunk and in her own triggered state of whatever that has been stirred up by Janet telling that he's sneaking alcohol behind the door. And Danny even admits in the after show, in a Watch What Happens, like, yeah, the chef is right there. They're filming. I just wanted to grab a drink really quick. I don't want to have to do the whole thing in front of everybody again. I don't think that it's that big of a deal. In the Watch What Happens live with Andy Cohen and Janet and Jason, because Andy Cohen is always the host. I don't know why I said his name. But with Janet and Jason, she's like, it's 3 glugs. She goes into great detail. It's 3 glugs.
Yeah.
Glug, glug, glug. He's like, so 3 shots? And she's like, I don't know. But she's like, warm tequila. And I was like, okay.
Yes. In the after show, Danny said, I shut the door because it was behind the door. I had to get it behind the door. Okay, that makes more sense. Oh, Janet, shut up.
And she keeps telling the story to this day. She's still like, he clearly has a problem.
Oh, God.
Meanwhile, Brittany's drunk and Jasmine launches herself, gets right back up again.
Oh, God, yeah.
She's like, people aren't being honest. People aren't being real. Why is she so intense about this? Well, the next day, Jasmine, Brittany, Zach, and Melissa get in their own car and like leave as quickly as possible without saying hi to anybody because they're like, Nia's probably so mad and wants to yell at us. It's like, yeah, you think? And also, you didn't give her a chance. You didn't give her a chance to have a conversation. You guys knew you fucked up and ran.
Yep.
I'm sorry. Then Brittany decides to host a dinner with the hot chef at her new place of like a girls' night where they're going to clear the air. They're going to have the conversation, the tough conversation they want to have with Nia, but also apologize for their part and move through it, which I think was nice. I mean, like if somebody wanted to quote unquote apologize to me and also give me caviar at dinner, I would be cool with that sort of. But when all of the girls get there and it's super awkward and they finally all sit down and Brittany says, I was drinking. I didn't come across very well. I'm so sorry. I would never want to talk to you like that. I'm sorry for how I talked to you. And then Jasmine says, I'm not even going to blame the alcohol. I shouldn't have spoken to you like that. That's not on you. But clearly, Danny's got a problem. It was so false because she's apologizing for how she spoke to Nia, but not for what she was saying and what she was doing.
Oh, yeah.
I did not enjoy her apology at all. I was
No.
very frustrated by it.
Her apology was completely fake.
Mm-hmm.
Her voice cracked. It wasn't even a real apology. It wasn't soft. It wasn't genuine. I have had someone apologize to me like that before, and it's not real. She did not believe the words she said. And you could totally hear that and see that. And it was gross.
Mm-hmm.
It was so fake and gross.
In the after show, in the interviews, she does acknowledge sorry. I have kittens, guys. I'm just, can you hear him? ASMR. He's so sweet. So in the interviews, she does acknowledge, I'm still really upset and triggered by what happened with Danny. I don't feel like it's okay. Like, no one's acknowledging that he's doing this again and what's really going on. Well, what's really going on from my point of view, from what they've shown us, Danny was out of control at Halloween. He slapped her girlfriend on the butt. He grabbed her thigh. He said, "Get daddy a drink." He apologizes on camera, and I found his apology to be very sincere.
Yeah.
He said, "That's not of my character. I'm so embarrassed. I'm so sorry. I really apologize for doing that." And she accepts that apology.
Yeah.
Now, we also find out this group had group therapy about it. They had marriage counseling about it.
Yeah.
And Nia and Danny had individual therapy about that.
Yeah.
So he apologized and he went and did work, not only on his own, but in the group. So I'm led to believe that if they did group therapy, Jasmine must have been a part of that, is my assumption. I don't know that for sure.
Yeah.
But how has he not made amends? And if you need to have a further conversation, Jasmine needs to go have a further conversation with him about it. So the way that she attacked Nia and got everyone else to attack Nia and to make it like her justice for Brittany, don't rope Brittany into this.
Yeah.
I thought was really shitty. Then Nia at the dinner, they're accusing her of putting on a front and pretending that everything's so perfect. She's former Miss USA. And they're like, maybe it's your pageant background. She's like, I don't think you understand my background very well. I was homeless off and on throughout my whole childhood. We lived in cars. We stayed in tents in our friend's backyard. I was pulling cans out of trash cans at the park to try and help my dad make rent. She's like, as an adult, I have lived in my car, and then I'm asleep in the back of my car and someone is knocking on my window and saying I need to move. That story, you saw Kristen, it really hit Kristen. And Kristen's like, I'm a ride or die for you forever. And I heard that story and I felt exactly the same way that Kristen did. Who,
Yeah.
by the way, everyone was kind of like dressed to the nines, but Kristen showed up like Earth Mother.
I know.
bet. Like, she looked like she smelled like patchouli.
Yeah.
And everyone else is like styling. I thought that was fun. What did you think of the reaction to Nia telling that story?
I, at first, thought everyone was very sincere and they were all taking it in and listening well and understanding her. And then the moment changed when Janet opened her fat mouth and ruined everything. And can I just say, where on the planet X is Janet an authoritarian on anything? Because who made her the king or queen of an apology or anything? Because she seems to think that she's some sort of authority on someone's drinking problem or alcoholism.
Right. Well, she then tells Nia the whole story again. Like, Nia had not heard about him going and getting tequila somehow. Because everyone's talking about it, not in front of Nia. And Nia says at the dinner, my biggest issue with all of this, what really has hurt me about all this, is that rather than saying, no, Danny's not just tired, he's clearly very drunk, I would have agreed with you. She's like, if you are having a problem with what he's doing, talk to me about it.
Yeah.
Talk to him about it. Don't make this into something that you are all talking about with each other behind my back the second I leave the room. She's like, that's what really hurt me. I want you to be direct with me. After she explains, hey, I did say, yeah, he's very tired, because he is very tired. Was he also drunk? Sure. But he's my husband, and I'm not going to call him out when I don't think he's done anything horrible.
Yeah.
And it's my job to protect him. We're a team. And I think all of that was very valid too. And I do want to talk about that a little bit more. But Janet then tells her the story of like, this is what I saw. Does it matter at this point?
No.
No. But then Janet says, I was in a relationship with a guy that had drug and alcohol problems. So if you do ever want to talk about his drinking, we are a safe place for you to come. She felt like motherfucking Teresa.
Yeah.
It was so shitty. Here's the part that makes me so angry, and I will never forgive her. I will never forgive Janet. I was almost on Team Janet, and now I will never forgive her. When they do the after show, and they all start talking about how Nia explaining her childhood and why she will not be very harsh and talk shit about her husband, and why she's going to see the lighter side of things on purpose and be grateful for things and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
They go, that sounded really rehearsed. It's like she had planned it. And it's like she said that so she could say, I used to be homeless, so now you can't say anything about my husband.
Oh my God.
Jasmine and Janet legitimately said that. King Zach,
Mm-hmm.
number one guy in the group, he actually calls Jasmine out, and he goes, and why are you being critical of her?
Yep.
Where did that thought come from? You didn't have any of that criticism for her until you talked to Janet.
Yep.
So Janet's been behind the scenes talking shit.
Yep.
And she, to this day, because she just did Watch What Happens Live, she's still talking shit.
Yep.
About this couple. And to my other point, Nia and Danny are clearly in the middle of doing a lot of work on themselves. Plus they have 3 kids and a 4th one on the way. Plus they both work full time. So their bandwidth is low, but they're putting in this effort to be connected, to be on the same page, and to be healthy, not just for themselves, but in this relationship. Nia's like, yeah, I have his back. My job is to have his back. His job is to have my back. If I don't like what he's doing or I think he's out of control, I'm going to tell him. But it's not my job to call him out in front of everyone. I'm his partner. I'm on his team, which is perfect and 100% what I would agree with.
Yeah.
She's not Jax screaming at Brittany. She's not Brittany calling out Jax at this point.
Yeah.
They are in a marriage that, while neither of them are perfect people, they have each other's backs. And it seems like where he's made mistakes, he is coming in and trying to rectify those things. So why does everyone want to vilify Danny so fucking bad?
Right.
I don't get it.
They want to do that because none of these couples do that for each other. Have you ever seen Janet do that for Jason? Have we ever seen Jason stand up for Janet? No. We've never seen any of them do that for their partner. And I think all these people are jealous. That's why they do that. It's ridiculous.
I mean, they're both gorgeous people.
Of course.
Nia and Danny. And they do seem happy and successful, and their kids are great. So yeah, there's part of you that's always going to hate them.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I just think that they make an effort to be good people.
Yeah.
In a way that no one else in this cast does. Other than Kristen. Can you believe that we're saying this about Kristen?
I know.
But other than Kristen, who is the voice of reason. And what I loved about her in the interviews, she said, we all sat down and they make a pact, all of the women at the dinner table, to say, hey, you know what? We are going to stop it. I don't even know where they are. Sorry, kittens. Kristen helps, and everyone makes a pact that they are going to be direct with each other.
Yeah.
And when they have a problem, I'm going to tell you, I'm not going to talk behind your back.
Yeah.
Which Kristen goes, there's a snowflake's chance in hell of that
Yep.
working out. Where are you on that? I think that there is good reason to be direct with people when you have a problem.
What happens though? Nia leaves and Jasmine instantly shit talks her. Instantaneously.
When she leaves the dinner.
When she leaves the table, Jasmine instantly shit talks her. Again.
The one that they just made the pact about.
Yeah.
I will acknowledge that what happened between Jasmine and Danny really affected her. Jasmine gives a little bit of context about, Jasmine's really good looking. They get fetishized because they are good looking lesbian couples and then think that they can touch her or touch them or get them to kiss for their own enjoyment. And that is very triggering for Jasmine at this point. And I can acknowledge that and respect that.
Yeah.
And I see the truth in it.
Yeah.
And I can also acknowledge that when Danny touched them and was disrespectful to them at Halloween, that could be very upsetting. And she has every right to be upset and hurt and wary and cautious of Danny from now on. Completely valid. What's not valid is not addressing it with him or choosing to separate yourself from it. Everyone knows what happens. Everyone already knows.
Yep.
From then on, you don't get to go on a crusade of anti-Danny for the rest of the thing. She has to, I'm not saying she has to just let it go. You need to address it with Danny and you need to figure out how to move on, or you need to remove yourself from situations with Danny.
Yeah.
And she has every right to do so. She doesn't have the right to shit talk Nia, to shit talk Danny, and frankly slander their names. Does Danny have a drinking problem? I don't know. Lala said something intelligent. Who am I? Who am I saying this? Lala said something intelligent because Lala has been sober. She said that alcoholism is a self-diagnosed disease.
Yeah.
They have to acknowledge it themselves.
Yeah.
And otherwise you're not really going to make any headway. And so Jasmine and Janet going after Danny and saying that this is a problem is not okay. Nia is very direct when they start to insinuate and compare Danny to Janet's ex who was involved in drugs and was an alcoholic and was abusive. Nia goes, okay, that's not a fair comparison. Don't draw a line between them. Not acceptable.
Yeah.
And I think that was her having Danny's back. And I think she was right.
Yeah.
It just grosses me out.
Yeah.
I am furious with Janet because she's still holding it up. I don't know how this season can shift for me that's ever going to make me feel differently about Janet.
Or
Even
Jasmine.
Danny, or Jasmine. Even if Danny ends up being a full-blown alcoholic, I don't think what they did was appropriate.
Oh, no. No. They both also called him an alcoholic. They both said, we know what an alcoholic is. We've seen an alcoholic before. We know the symptoms. He's an alcoholic. They don't get to label him. That's not okay. And I agree with everything you just said. Jasmine has to remove herself, and it's not okay for her to pit the entire group against him at all.
No.
I think it's terrible.
I think another thing that I wanted to talk about from that is Brittany does acknowledge that she was reacting from her lens. She's in the middle of what's going on with Jax. She's seeing a marriage, and she's seeing it from the perspective of what she's been going through with Jax. And so she's putting that lens on it, which is not a fair comparison to what's Nia and Danny's marriage, which seems like a very respectful, loving, caring marriage. And they keep bringing up that Nia and Danny are like picking on each other and they're fighting. There are a few moments that we saw last episode and we see this episode where Nia is quick and direct with him. She goes, no, you need to listen to your wife. I'm telling you something clear right now.
Yeah.
You're not listening. Then there's another time where she says, I don't like when you're doing that. You're talking over me. I hadn't finished what I was saying.
Yeah.
And he responds to her by listening to her and going, oh, sorry about that. I think that, one, they're in marriage counseling. And Nia just seems very self-aware and very aware of like, these are what my needs are.
Yeah.
And he seems very happy to go, oh, I can adjust my behavior to meet what your needs are in this moment. She's not being disrespectful to him. She's calling out behavior that she can't tolerate.
Yeah.
And if it went the other way, I think we would feel exactly the same way about it. That's the thing. If we flipped it around, I think we would go, he's being reasonable. I don't think anyone's being unreasonable here.
Yeah, I was just about to say that.
I'm a dark side Danny apologist, I think, is where I'm at.
I was having a hard time believing Brittany's apology. I was 80-20 feeling like it was a fake apology, that she didn't believe her apology. She had a hard time apologizing to Nia because she's so tender about everything she's going through. That's why.
I would agree with you. I think a lot of people are turning on Brittany right now because of that behavior. But also, I think we can all give her a little bit of grace because we see where that's coming from. Yeah. I think that Brittany is not terribly emotionally mature.
Right.
I think that she doesn't have the emotional intelligence to go through that. I think she's a people pleaser. And I think whoever the loudest person in the room is, Jasmine and Janet, they're going to sway her. Yeah. I think she's also a people pleaser and she wants there to be peace. She wants everyone to be happy. She's going to say what needs to be said to try and level things out.
Agree. Yeah.
So I think that's what we saw when she was apologizing. I think she wants everything to be okay. I think she does love Nia. I think they're drawing connections between what's going on and coming up with they're not being real enough and Brittany has to show everything and it's not fair. That's life, baby. Like, they don't have to throw each other under the bus. They're happily married. Yeah. They're not in the middle of a divorce.
Yeah.
So
the other thing for me is that whole group dinner showed me none of these women truly care about each other, are truly friends. That's what I thought.
Kristen has Nia's back, and that's all I saw.
Yep.
That's all I saw. Yeah. And in the after show, even Michelle seemed to be on the...
Yeah.
And who else? Sheena.
Oh, Sheena Shea. Yep. We get to see her, Miss Thing.
So, speaking of Michelle and Sheena, we see them go on a hike.
Yep.
And they didn't really get a chance to talk too much about it. They show like 2-second clip of it, but Michelle is explaining to Sheena how awful the Santa Barbara trip was and how Jesse's out of control. And that also, as everything has been ramping up in their divorce, Aaron pulls Michelle aside and says, I love you. I love Isabella. Jesse's always going to be around. I don't think that I can deal with that. Yep. You guys are great. I don't think that I can deal with this guy for the rest of my life.
Yep.
And maybe it would be better if we're not together if I have to deal with that. I don't think they officially have broken up yet, but it's clearly like he's like, oh, holy shit.
Yep. I mean, do you fault the guy at all? Because if it were the other way around, like she said, if it were an ex-wife, she'd be like, ugh. I don't want anything to do with Miss Crazy. So
she's like, I get it. Ooh, that's sad. That sucks. Right. I think I would be the Jesse, though. Like, if Matt wanted to leave me, I would make it. Matt actually says that he's terrified. He's like, even if I didn't like you, he's like, we're good, but I don't think I'd want to get divorced from you anyway because you would make my life a living hell. I would be a terrible ex-wife to have. Meanwhile, Jesse is with his life coach. It was his marriage coach, but he didn't coach him through the marriage terribly well.
And he doesn't coach him this way terribly well. That was my opinion about it, people.
Well, I think you can be a life coach without any sort of formal training.
Clearly, as we see in this little clip. Thank you.
I mean, this was...
terrible.
Not good. This isn't therapy. This isn't getting to a better place. Jesse is just talking about how he's gotten triggered so easily. He doesn't understand why he's triggered so easily.
He doesn't understand it, ladies and gentlemen. Stop it.
And
this douchebag's name is Scott.
Oh, Scott.
Fuck you, Scott. He comes over to the house. He sucks bad.
He does. He does talk about how, like, if you're, and this is not a good metaphor. I'm great at metaphors and analogies, self-professed. However, his is a little convoluted. And he's like, think of your life like a garden. And what your water is the attention. So if you water the flowers, they're going to bloom, and that's going to be the good things in your life. But if you water poison ivy, and he's calling Michelle poison ivy. He's like, you've got to co-parent with this poison ivy. Fuck off, Scott.
Yep. Yeah.
It was
terrible.
Just so unnecessary.
Very terrible.
But Jesse's like, she's so full of rage and she's so full of anger at me, and I don't understand why.
Oh,
she has said over and over and over again all the reasons why. And he's like, why is she mad at me? You spent all the money. You were an absentee parent for the first 3 years of Isabella's life. You don't give her any affection. You wouldn't hug her, kiss her, tell her that she was pretty. You would just leave for 8-hour lunches and buy about $1,500 bottles of wine. Like, do you not? She told you. We all know. We all saw it. And he's like, I don't know why.
But no, that's projecting onto him. All of those things.
And even the life coach is like, she's been cheating on you for 2 years. She said that she kissed another dude on a night out with a girlfriend.
And that's cheating for 2 years, ladies and gentlemen, just so you know.
They will not let the Aaron thing go.
Let's do some math here. The math ain't mathin'.
In Watch What Happens Live, Jesse said that, like, it seems like things are getting better. Michelle was also on Watch What Happens Live and said, you know, she is a lawyer now. Yeah. So instead of mediating, that she's getting support from the lawyer. And so that's making it a little bit easier.
Yep.
Which, good for her. I'm so glad she's finally done that. Kristen and Luke are renting a house that is super cute with their dogs. It's 3 bedrooms, so they can have guests in a nursery, and they have Jasmine over. And Kristen and Luke talk some sense into Jasmine.
Yeah. And
they're like, everyone was drunk. Why is it that big of a deal for you?
Yeah.
If you're upset, you need to go talk to him. It was this moment of, like, someone's here having a normal conversation.
Yeah.
It's the only normal conversation that happens this entire episode.
And it was Kristen.
Yeah. And Timu Tintin Luke. He's so fucking boring. And you can see him, like, trying to, like, he's trying to be worth having on this show. But he's not good at it. And then he even amps it up a little bit. He takes Danny to go buy an engagement ring for Kristen.
Woof.
Do you know anything about diamonds? I'm not like a diamond person.
I don't know. I mean, I understood what they were talking about with the clarity and the cut and the V6 and all this. I mean, I was following that. And
it seemed like he was getting a very big diamond, but the color wasn't very good. Or the clarity wasn't very good. It's kind of like, I think that's what I was hearing. Oh. And then I guess Kristen had said, absolutely do not spend more than $10,000 on a ring. But it sounds like Luke definitely spent more than that. Where is he getting that money? And also, why? Why are you spending that much on a ring?
They have to be getting, what, $30,000 per episode, don't you think?
Oh, you think?
Oh, easily. I think easily. Works. You have to look it up.
I'll have to look it up. We're going to look it up, guys.
Yeah, we're going to look it up. That's what I
do think. Like that they got the ring from Kyle Chan.
Yes!
Who is Vanderpump callback.
Yep.
I think he's done everybody in Vanderpump's engagement rings. And it was his party the last episode where he was doing his big unveiling of his liquor and in San Francisco, and that was the last episode of Vanderpump Rules.
Yes.
Where Ariana walks out. You get the hot mic moment of Sandoval going, well, this is great for me. This looks good for me. And Lala talking so much fucking shit. Oh, that was Kyle Chan's party.
Yes.
Yay.
Yay, Kyle. I thought it was a pretty ring, but...
It was very pretty.
I thought it was
it looked great on camera. I have a couple rings from Matt. I have my original engagement ring is actually from his family. Mm-hmm. It's like it's a Art Deco heirloom piece that I really like, but I don't want to wear because I'm afraid I'm going to break it because it's old and it's beautiful though. And then he got me a ring for our anniversary, and then he got me another ring for another anniversary, and they are moissanite. They are pretty, they are sparkly, and if anything happens to them, I didn't keep us from being able to get a new AC when we need it in the last minute, or, they're much less expensive, but they're almost exactly as hard, and they sparkle a little bit more.
Ooh.
Lab-grown moissanite is where it's at for me.
Okay.
Are you a jewelry girl?
I do. He got me an okay ring, and I promptly handed it back to him and said, do it again.
Oh.
I don't care for this.
You Carrie Bradshaw it.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, and so we went back together, and I picked out one that I liked. He was very good about it. He was like, oh, thank God you're going to get something you like, because I had no idea. And he dealt with it really well. So it went good.
Oh, that's lovely. Yeah. With Matt, I would go like, I want one of these 3 and send him the Etsy listing. Although our wedding bands, we got it off Etsy, and I think they were like $60.
Oh my gosh. And then next week on The Valley, we get to see Dum Dum gets released from, or does he release himself?
He releases himself early.
From the facility.
Yeah.
Ay.
And
what do you got going on?
There's a literal cat fight.
Yeah.
One just ran into a table leg.
Oh no.
Yeah, I need a little bit of chaos in my life, but it has to be chaos that I introduce to feel good about it.
Okay.
Like when things feel out of control, I do something out of pocket, but then it's something that I chose. I chose this chaos, so it makes me feel better about it. Okay. And that is getting 3 new Fosters.
Okay.
Insane. Yeah. But next week is going to be intense, I think.
Yeah. Oh, boy.
So everyone just hold on to your butts.
Your butts.
And as messy as this is, the true crime documentary that we watched this week on Netflix has to be, I think, maybe the worst serial killer story I've ever heard.
Oh.
And I thought I knew about them.
Oh.
But this is dark and rough and dirty. So many layers of awfulness to it. Mm-hmm. I was not prepared.
You weren't? I have heard of these 2 before on several different occasions, and I was very excited for this one to come out. So it is Fred and Rose West, a British horror story. This is a husband and wife serial killer couple, everybody.
Oh.
But they started out in the 1990s, but these lovely 2 people have been really killing young ladies since the 1970s, really. Maybe the 1960s, actually. Maybe. But they live in Gloucester, England, and we meet Fred West because it is February 1994, and his children have decided to tell the police that their sister is buried under the patio in their backyard. And they call it the garden in England. So it's their backyard.
But they say it like it's a family joke.
Yeah.
Like the family joke is you're going to end up like your sister.
Yeah.
Under the garden.
Yeah. Under the stones. Yeah.
Half of their kids were in care.
Yeah.
Which means they were in foster care.
Yeah.
And that's where these stories are coming out.
Yeah. And so the police are concerned, so they start digging up these paver stones in the garden, which again is their backyard. And we listened to the interview. So it's just these taped interviews with Fred about what's going on. So they're asking Fred, right, in 1994, what's going on? And Fred is married to Rose, and they have quite an age difference. Fred met Rose. Rose was 15, and he was 27 when they got together. So there's quite an age difference. So they live in this city called Gloucester. It's terraced houses, kind of like row houses maybe in the U.S.
Yeah,
maybe.
like a townhouse.
Yeah, townhouse kind of thing. They're at the end of so they're digging up these pavers. They're trying to find their eldest daughter, Heather, has been missing. So it's 1994, and their daughter has been missing since 1986. Nobody has seen or heard from her. And Fred and Rose have not done a missing person report on her. Mm-mm. And the police are saying, why didn't you put out a missing persons report on your daughter? And they don't have an answer. Fred's like, I don't know. I don't have an answer for you.
Just very blasé about the whole thing.
Yeah, he is very blasé. He laughs a lot, kind of an awkward laugh. When they ask him questions. It's really chilling to listen to him at times.
Because the subject matter is so awful and dark, but yet he comes across as just like an affable, almost like salt of the earth kind of charming guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They do ask him, are we going to find anything there? Are we going to find Heather? Are we going to find anything? And he's like, no, I don't think you're going to find anything. And they say, look, if we're going to find what we're going to find there, you might as well just tell us what's going on. So, the reporters, TV, news, people find out, they go down there, take a couple pictures and leave. And then finally, Fred says to the police, you're digging in the wrong place in the backyard. And the police say, oh, okay. Well, that's helpful. Thank you. So then we meet Fred's lawyer. His name is Howard. And then we meet a lady named Janet. She is what they called an appropriate adult. It's basically a social worker.
That's what I was thinking. It was it's somebody who's advocating for them to make sure that they are being treated well. Like they're being fed in jail. They're not getting the shit beat out of them. That when they're being interrogated, they're following the rules. She was young. Yeah. She had just finished school. This is one of the first jobs she had out of school. Yeah. And she said that they didn't really know what they were getting into on the first day. And then when it all started coming out, she was like, oh my God. Fred had turned to her and said, are you going to be back tomorrow? Yeah. And everyone then turned to her and went, yeah, are you coming back tomorrow? And she said that she regrets not saying no. Yeah. But she said yes. And I think this kind of fucked up her life.
Yeah, from that day on, Fred really wanted Janet there at all times. Janet was kind of like his emotional support vehicle at all times. He really trusted her. He would really tell Janet a lot that he wouldn't tell the police. Mm-hmm. And I think the police knew that at times. So we have Janet there at the interview when they're interviewing Fred about what they're digging up in the backyard. So then Fred says, okay, I never intended to hurt Heather. I basically took a cable. They showed a picture. I had to look it up because he said it was an electric flex. And I didn't know what it was. I had to Google it. So it's basically a cable wire. He said I tied it around her neck and basically strangled, and then I cut her up with a bread knife.
With a fucking bread knife.
A bread knife. Then he said it cut her up.
Oh, it was so gross.
Yeah.
And then they even questioned him on it. They were like, the coroner said that you couldn't just do this. And he goes, well, he's never done it, has he?
Right. What? Okay. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Just you haven't done it, but I have. I know. You can do it just fine.
Right.
Just a bread knife. Gross.
Oh, my God. Awful. How big of a bread knife are we talking, right? And she had to have been, 15 maybe at the time?
She was young.
Yeah. So what they've done now is they have moved Rose and their two other children into kind of a safe house. And the rest
of their children, the two oldest children are with the mom.
Yes.
In the safe house. they had like 10 kids.
Yes.
All the rest, so the oldest one dead.
Yes.
Buried in the backyard. The oldest 2 with the mom.
Yes.
The rest are in care. The rest are in, so they have 7 children in foster care.
Mm-hmm.
And the children speaking up in foster care are the reason that all of this has started.
Yes. But in the safe house, they have planted recording devices that Rose doesn't know about.
Nuts for those recordings.
I know. And so they're trying to see if Rose knew anything about Heather's murder or Heather's death. In these recordings, Rose is saying, Fred is crazy. I would never do anything. I would never hurt Heather. Your father made me do all of these things. Talking to her children. Mm-hmm. It was very shocking the way she was talking to her children. The police are thinking, okay, Rose didn't know. At this point, they're thinking, okay, Rose didn't know anything. Rose gets an attorney herself. His name is Leo. Leo goes and tells Rose, okay, Fred killed Heather. And Rose doesn't take it well. She says, look, I didn't have anything to do with it. This was all Fred. Fred did it. I didn't do anything. So at this point, they now take Fred back to the house the next day. Fred points out in the backyard garden where to pull up Heather's bones because they were digging in the wrong spot. So now they find Heather's bones and some more. They find 2 more sets of bones in the backyard. But at that point, while they're digging it up, Janet is there. And Fred walks over to Janet and says, oh, did you see that over there? And Janet says, no, I didn't see anything. What are you talking about? And he says, there's a bone sticking up.
Sticking out right over there.
Right,
it's a joke. Like, look at these idiots. It's right there in front of them.
Right
like
there.
They were missing an Easter egg.
Like a big old femur bone sticking up out of the ground. It was horrible. And she's like, nope, I didn't see that. Yeah. So then we meet the forensic pathologist. His name is Professor Knight. He's basically this doctor they call in. He's the doctor that they're talking about that you mentioned, right? You have had to have cut up a body before to have these specific straight cuts on a bone, where they make that joke that Fred says, well, he's never done it before if he's had hacks and hacks before cutting up a body. So they find a skeleton, they find a hair, they find Heather, they find 2 more bodies. They talk about the house that they live in, and they describe the home. It's like a townhome. The top of the house, they said they rented. It was to lodgers. So back in the 70s, they meet this woman named Jane. She was 17 years old. She stayed in the home, and she rented a room at the top of the house. And she said there was other people that lived in the home, people that would backpack. They would stay in a room. Other girls would come and go and stay in a room.
It seemed like a lot of like runaways, like girls who were just like leaving home, needing to get out of their own houses for whatever reason. It wasn't like it wasn't a nice area. It wasn't a safe area. Yeah. It was a lot of people who, maybe had a lot of problems. So it was a lot of these girls that were runaways or girls that had been kicked out of home. Yeah. Things like that would end up as lodgers on that top floor.
And Jane explained that the way she saw things was that Rose ran the household, not Fred. But there was another girl that was in the house. Her name was Shirley Robinson. And Shirley she was 18 years old, and all of a sudden Shirley became pregnant. And Shirley told Jane that Fred was the father of her baby. So, we find out that they talked to Fred, and Fred says, well, yeah, one of the other bodies is probably Shirley. Shirley was a troublemaker. The professor, the doctor, the forensic pathologist, when he's describing the home, he says that the middle part of the home looked kind of strange, like a reception area that you would go in, not like a family room, But like
He
where
said
you
it was
would,
like a seedy hotel
Yeah.
reception room.
yeah, which sounded really kind of icky and gross.
They showed photos of it. There was
Yeah.
like a bar with like
Yeah.
taps.
Mm-hmm.
Where were they fitting all of that?
Yeah.
It looked terrifying as
Oh
they're
my
going
gosh.
through, because you find out that he had remodeled the house over and over again,
Mm-hmm.
and that he had set up these rooms, including the master bedroom, to
Oh,
be taped for like with recording devices.
yeah.
So he was videotaping and sound recording the bedrooms,
Mm-hmm.
and he would have like little side hallways in that he could go and sneak peek things for the grossest reasons.
Yeah. Any sexual watching, any of those kind of reasons. The house, the layout of the house was just gross. All of those poor children their children were living there. We go back to Fred saying, right, Shirley was in the house. Shirley was pregnant. He didn't want Rose to find out that Shirley was pregnant. The night that Shirley died, Rose was in labor. He had taken Rose to the hospital to give birth. He had come home, and Shirley said, look, I want you to take me to Bristol. I want you to take me home. And Fred said, no, I can't. I have to go back to the hospital to Rose. She's having the baby. And Shirley got upset and said, fine, then I'm telling Rose what's going on. And Fred said, no, you're not. And he said, then I smacked her over the head as hard as I could. And then I strangled her with the cable. And then I cut her body up and buried her in the backyard too. There was Shirley's mate, her friend, that I don't know what her name was or who she was. I killed her too and buried her in the backyard. But we do find out her name. Her name is Allison. She was living there as well. So we meet her sister. This was in 1979. She was living in the house. Fred kills her. We don't know a whole lot about Allison, but he kills her. He admits to killing Allison, and this is the other body that they find in the backyard or the garden. That was in 1979. So now Fred is still showing the police, look, this is where all the bodies are, in the backyard.
There was the other girl that had been a lodger there, and you hear about what living in that house was like.
Yeah.
And at first it was this opportunity for her to get to live away from her parents and kind of strike it out on her own. But then the family had embraced her like she was also kind of part of the family. But then things started seeming kind of weird. And then she's hearing kids crying out in the middle of the night. And she realizes that it's the dad sexually assaulting his children.
Yeah.
And she's like, I gotta go. And she leaves, and she said one of her biggest regrets is that she didn't go to the police, but she was already a runaway.
Yeah.
And if she did that, then she, would end up in trouble herself, and she didn't really know. And so that's something that she carries forever.
So then they bring in a psychologist to interview Fred and talk to him to see what they can find out. And he starts thinking, well, this house is rather small. There's quite a lot of people living inside the house. He's burying bodies in the garden. Where else is he burying bodies? He just starts to think there has got to be another place that he's burying bodies. He says, you need to look inside the house for bodies. So the police start to go inside the home and start just tearing up inside the house. And they start with the cellar. They go downstairs in the basement, and this basement is just dark and smelly and dank.
It looked like a horror movie.
Yeah.
They said that he had split a sewer pipe. He was a builder, so he
Yep.
had done a lot of custom work on this house. So he'd split a sewer pipe for some reason trying to put in something else, but also it had been a child's playroom. So the walls were decorated with like kids' cartoons.
Yeah.
And it looked like a horror movie.
Yeah. It was terrible. And so they tell Fred, hey, now we're inside your house. Do you want to tell us anything? Is there anybody inside the house? And he says, quote, there's a fucking load more inside the house. And so Fred writes a confession letter that there's 9 more bodies buried inside the home in the cellar. 9 more. That's the end of episode 1. So episode 2, we start to learn about Rose. We learn more about when they met. Like I said, he was 27, she was 15. A couple months after they meet, she becomes pregnant. They get married, and he starts to prostitute her out in their home. Men come to their home. She is sleeping with other men, and like you said, there are cameras and holes in the rooms that she's prostituting with these men, and he's watching and videotaping everything. And it's this really sadistic and really gross lifestyle that they're living. And nobody really, I'm not quite sure if anybody ever came to the conclusion whether it was agreed or if he forced her or if she wanted to do it. I just wasn't quite sure.
Well, she's denying a lot of it. Although they talked to a neighbor, and the neighbor says she asked if I had a problem with what she was doing, and I said, if that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do. Yeah. And they are fairly open with their neighbor friend about it. I think it's very hard to say, would she have done that if she hadn't met Fred when she was 15 years old? Who knows?
Sure. Probably not.
Probably not. That's not a normal thing to fall into. They also kind of describe him as besotted with her. That he is just head over heels in love with her, kind of obsessed with her. So it is, it's a different kind of relationship. If everyone is consenting adults, which we know because they're serial killers and awful, that obviously it wasn't. But the stuff that, just the sexual stuff, if everyone is a consenting adult, if that's what they want to do, that's what they want to do. It's weird. I don't get it. But he had ads for her I guess back in the 70s, they had papers with like her topless for a good time. Give us a call. Yeah. Kind of stuff.
Like a Craigslist kind of a thing. Yeah.
It's just.
Yeah, it was incredible. And at one point later on, when he's explaining picking up these young girls, he says, I kept Rose pregnant and busy with other men because I didn't want her to find out that I was with other women. It was just, it's so incredible to me, that mindset. But she's, right, having sex with other men, but he's so worried she's going to be upset with him because he's cheating on her. I mean, what? Right? Yeah. Okay, so back to the story. So they go into his house. Fred goes into the basement with them. They videotape. He starts with a spray can marking near the chimney and on the walls and on the floor where each of the bodies are buried, so they can dig up the bodies. There is a 15-year-old girl named Juanita that's buried in there. There, a 21-year-old girl named Lucy that's buried in there. Her family hadn't seen her. The last time they saw her was at Christmas. She went to go catch a bus to go to a friend's house. So we find out what had been happening was Fred would get in his car and basically drive and look for these young girls that were hitchhiking or just walking down the street by themselves and pick up these girls and basically say, I'll give you a ride wherever you were going. And not. take them where they were going and take them back to his house. He said in the beginning he would train Rose to what he wanted, right? He wanted a family. He said he was sending her out with other men, which was basically prostituting in the house, which is just incredible to me. I can't even believe that this was happening between a married couple. It was just so hard to watch. She says in the beginning, Fred was in control, that her mom told her, look, you need to marry an older man. He'll take care of you, right? He'll treat you right. He'll do all the things that you need to do. So go find an older man. They go into the cellar at one point and they find a trap door in the cellar. And he said, I was either going to use it for a torture room or use it for the kids for a playroom, which is just, it was just totally shocking to me. How does your mind go there to choose one or the other?
I mean, those were the two options.
Yeah.
But they were also kind of the same thing.
Right.
Because he was already assaulting his own children.
Right. That's true. He said the police, all in all, they find the 9 bodies down there. And they were taped and bagged and gagged. They now have all the 9 bodies plus the bodies in the backyard. And they're still trying to find out if Rose knew anything about what Fred was doing. Rose is still not saying anything in the safe house, whether she knew what was happening or not. Fred at one point said he knew he would probably go to prison for all of these murders, but Rose would live down the street and would probably come and see him every day and visit him. And so he was fine with that, which is really interesting.
He's adamant that she had no idea.
Yeah.
Adamant that she had no idea.
Over and over again. The police are just constantly asking him, what does Rose know? What did Rose do? And he keeps saying nothing. I did everything. Over and over and over again.
But that just doesn't make
any sense
to them because it's such a small house.
Yep.
And there's so many bodies.
Yep.
And there's so many kids running around. And if even the children are saying, Heather's in the garden, and that's what will happen to me if I'm bad.
Yeah. So then we meet their nanny from 1972, Caroline. And she lived with them and took care of the kids. And she said that they were just wonderful. And she had no problem with them for a really long time. And then one day, Fred came up to her and said, me and Rose would like you to join us in our sex circle. And she said, no, thank you. And left the house immediately. She said it was very scary for me. I just left. I couldn't be there anymore. And see, I wrote this down that she was the one that was hitchhiking and that she got in the car.
They had run into each other and she was really worried that the way that they had, she just kind of left. She's like, and I quit. And she was worried that they would be upset at her for the way that she quit. Yeah. Which this is something that really has been sticking in my head lately. This thing where in society women are trained, but in general, people are trained. There's studies that have been on this where in our society, we're trained to be polite. We don't want to rock the boat. We don't want to make anything uncomfortable. So she literally had a man that's 20, 30 years older than her. Yeah. Saying, I'd like you, young lady, my nanny, to join the sex circle with my wife and I. Yep. And she's like, well, then I quit and I didn't want them to be mad at me. But then they were really nice, actually. And then they offered me a ride. So, of course, I got in the car.
Oh, I know.
Why are we so terrified of saying no, being direct?
Yeah. Making someone upset.
Yeah.
I know.
We don't want to make anyone uncomfortable. He asked you to be in a sex circle. I'm not victim blaming. I'm saying it's unfair that that's like literally how we've been trained up in this world.
Yeah. So she does get in the car and she says, what? Rose is in the car. Rose is in the car. And this is the first time we hear that Rose has had anything to do with any of these murders, any of these kidnappings, was anywhere near any of this stuff. So they hit her over the head. They take her back to the house. They take her back to the basement. They undress her. They gag her. They tie her hands behind her back. They blindfold her. They put her on a mattress and they sexually assault her. So then after the assault, Fred grabs her by the throat. He lifts her up and he tells her he's going to kill her and he's going to bury her in the backyard under the paver. And nobody will hear her. And so the police confront Fred with that story and he said, that's absolute crap. That's never happened. But what we find out is Caroline somehow escapes from the basement with that. And I'm not quite sure. They talked about Rose and Fred getting charged with some sort of a rape charge or an assault case. And I'm not sure if this was that.
So it was an assault, but it wasn't a full rape case. They decided for some reason to drop it.
Yeah.
And Caroline went to the police.
Yeah. But
the severity of the charges got dropped.
Yeah.
Caroline says, I didn't feel like I didn't want to pursue it any further, but now I feel like so much guilt for not, because maybe if I had pushed farther, maybe if I had made the police more aware of everything that had happened, maybe then. But it doesn't sound like they were interested in following up on this beyond what they had at the time.
Yeah. So nothing really happened from Caroline's assault. So Fred then says at the end of that episode that he still hasn't told the whole truth. Mm-hmm. And then episode 3 is about the trial. The police ask Fred about his first wife and his first daughter, Charmaine, from 1971, because those people are missing. Fred says, well, they're in a field. They're buried in a field. And yeah, I killed them too. So then they take another field trip out to this field and they dig up the body and they find his first wife and his 7-year-old daughter out there. Another teenager named Anne, who was, I wrote down the nanny from 1967. This was a Scottish teenager that he knew that he had also murdered out. So he showed where this third person was out in this field. So the police are saying to themselves, okay, Fred is unloading all of these, he's confessing to all of these bodies, telling us where all of these people are, so that we leave Rose alone. We get away from Rose. We stop trying to find out if Rose has anything to do with it. And we don't bring up Rose anymore. Well, they're still trying to figure out if Rose has anything to do with it. Fred and his first wife and his daughter lived obviously in a different home before he married Rose. So they go to this first home, and they searched that home to see if he had buried any bodies in this first home. And Fred said, well, yeah, I buried his second daughter. Is that what it was? Okay, so yeah, he had a second daughter, a 7 or 8-year-old daughter under the kitchen foundation. So they're outside, it looks like, and he's pointing along the wall of the foundation where her body is. So they retrieve that body and they're doing all this forensic work on this child's body and they're doing all this research. And they're really trying to figure out when this daughter was killed. And they're doing a timeline. And at that point, his first wife was gone. He had murdered his first wife, and Rose was in the picture. And so Rose was in the home with this daughter at that point. But Fred was doing some prison time for some petty crime. So Rose and this young daughter were home alone. And the police and this forensic pathologist were trying to do a timeline to prove that Rose had killed this child instead of Fred.
The letters that they found between Fred and Rose while he was in prison were chilling.
Yes.
She's talking about how this child has been mouthing off and was very sassy with her.
Yes.
But also how she likes to be handled. She likes to be handled roughly.
Yes.
And you kind of get the impression that they are prostituting out this young girl as well to these men. He's writing back, well, just, deal with her as you have to for now. I'll be home soon. It'll be fine. I'll deal with it when I get home.
Yep.
And it's just horrific. The way that Rose is writing about this little girl is really disgusting.
Yeah. They put it together. They end up charging Rose, and with the death of this daughter, they arrest Fred and Rose. They're going to trial. They have the 12 counts because they have the 12 bodies now, and they're both in jail. They're waiting trial. And on January 1st of 1995, Fred is found dead in his cell. He has hung himself. He's committed suicide. And everybody is very, very upset.
This was super interesting.
Yeah.
Because he had, as they decided to charge Fred and Rose, he is so adamant that she knows nothing. He's clearly, everyone sees he's trying to protect her.
Yep.
She's not saying anything, so they don't have enough on her until they are able to forensically determine that she died while he was in prison. So it had to have been Rose. Every single thing up until then, he'd taken all of the blame for. And then at one of the hearings at some point, Rose was there and he was there, and he had put his hand on her shoulder. And before this, he had been like, I will go to prison for it. She's going to live in the house, like you said, and come visit me every day. Well, she's cold. She doesn't even acknowledge him. And then he starts talking to his appropriate adult. He's like, you know what? Never mind. He starts to give little explanations that Rose actually had been helpful to him getting the girls in the car. Yeah. Girls were more willing to get in the car with him because he had Rose in the car.
Yeah.
Which is like an MO, I feel like.
Oh, sure.
These couples that use the fact that there's a woman to be able to do these horrific things. I think he's so broken hearted that she's turned on him, and he didn't see that coming.
Yep.
He did not see that coming. Meanwhile, they have all of the recordings of her ranting and raving to her children, who are under the age of, they're young.
Yeah.
They're not that old. They had to have been like teenagers, preteens. And she's ranting and raving about how he's sick and how he's awful. And she would never, she'll spit on him if she sees him. She's just completely, the second that they got caught, that he got caught, she iced him out. Yeah. And I think that's why he killed himself, because he realized that she was done with him.
Yep.
He had no way out.
Yep. And it seemed like he was more in love with her than I guess she was with him. And he figured that out. So yeah, he killed himself. She went on trial. Her attorney, Leo, said, look, this is going to be a slam dunk because from the beginning, they have nothing on her. It's all circumstantial evidence. And in what I do for a living, really people love to say, oh, it's all circumstantial. But what I like to say is the word after that. You have circumstantial evidence. It's still evidence. Whether it's circumstantial or not, it's still evidence. So they have all this circumstantial evidence. I mean, Caroline Owens, she testifies that Rose was there. Rose committed the assault. Rose was in the car. Everybody testifies. I thought it was very interesting to learn that, I guess I'm naive, or I had never heard about this before, but the media would pay witnesses for testimony. Had you heard about that before?
Had not that specific bit of it, but I know that like the way that the news and tabloid works in the UK is insane. I mean, look at the Daily Mail, right?
Yes.
Like everything's saucy. They can print a lot of crazy stuff, and so the poor appropriate adults.
Yeah, poor Janet.
The prosecution was going to be using Janet because he had told Janet all of these things that he hadn't told the police. So she had even more information.
Yeah.
But what the prosecution did, and I feel like in the US, isn't it against the law? Don't they put gag orders and stuff like that? This isn't allowed, but it, for some reason in the UK, is allowed.
Yeah.
Or at least at that point was. So people can sell stories to the media.
Yeah.
And then what the prosecution will say is, well, can we really trust them? Because if they sold this story, what if they amped up the story to get more money? They want to be salacious so that they can make it more newsworthy. So is that even like a fair thing? Well, Janet, she's clean as a whistle. She's sweet little pure Janet. Then you find out actually she did sell a story. She sold one story. And when that comes out, she has a full breakdown.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that happens. Regardless, they do find her guilty of 10 counts of murder. Rose is given life in prison.
Life in prison for each count, each of the 10 counts.
Yep. Yeah, the families are really happy. Stephen, their eldest son, is there. And I thought that he even said to one of the families, I'm so sorry that your sister went through that. And the family was like, why are you apologizing? And oh my gosh, it was just, anyway, that was really hard to watch and listen to. But that was the end. And this story is so incredible to watch inside, that it even actually happened is shocking.
Just the trail of victims that these two have left behind.
Yeah.
I mean, he victimized Rose, who then in turn became the perpetrator of just horrific violence and abuse to her own children.
Yeah.
He to his own children, then to these young girls who were already in vulnerable positions, going after them.
Yeah.
All of the families who have to find out what happened to them. Janet, the appropriate adult who had to sit through all of this. I mean, all of the professionals were like, this is one thing that stands out above all else as being the most horrific crimes that we've ever had come into contact with. A lot of people were upset that he killed himself because he didn't sit through and the punishment that he deserved, the acknowledgement of what he's done.
Or the why, right? We don't know the why. We don't know even if there's more or anything. He just kept saying, he even told Stephen, his son, I will never tell the whole truth. You will never know the whole truth. He just kept saying that over and over again. That's just so incredible to me.
It's nuts. It's intense. It's a really good documentary. Yeah. It makes me kind of want to go see, did they do more interviews? Did they ever get anything else out of Rose farther down the line? What a genuinely horrific story.
Yeah. It's really good. You should watch it.
Yep. It's good. It's on Netflix.
Netflix.
All right.
Okay.
Well, I'm going to feed these kittens that have been biting the shit out of me. Oh my God, but look how cute he is.
Beautiful.
Well, Next week, we have a jailbreak that we're going to be talking about.
Oh, yes.
Once we find another good true crime. Who knows? Surprise next week. You don't know. We don't know either.
We don't either. We just kind of fly by the seat of our pants around here.
The Valley will be there. And we will be talking about Jax. We didn't really talk about Jax this episode at all.
It was quite nice.
It was pretty nice. And I just hated Janet the whole time instead of Jax.
Ugh, she deserves to be hated.
Fucking Janet.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we have good Janet, poor good Janet from the murder show, and bad Janet from the Valley.
Yes. Never thought about that. Yep. Okay.
Well, thank you everybody for listening, and
All right.
we will see what we have for you next week.
See you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.